The GWS Giants enter the SCG, still in search of their first win in season 2013. The AFL's youngest team fell just 4 points short last week against the Bulldogs after leading for large portions of the game. In perfect conditions here in Sydney today, they'll test themselves against the AFL's elite, coming up against the 2012 Premiers and Sydney neighbours, the Sydney Swans. Hello and welcome to round 16 here at the SCG. Magnificent conditions for footy, and Paul Roos, the Premiership coach from 1996 or 2006, joins me. Really good day and a great opportunity for the young GWS Giants to test themselves against the best defensive side in the comp.
Yeah, absolutely. They're pretty good round one. I think the challenge now for the Giants is round 16. It's just to pick a healthy, fit team because their form's going to fluctuate a fair bit over the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, and they made a few changes. Let's have a look at the GWS lineup now. And young O'Rourke comes in, the number 2 draft pick for the Giants. He'll debut in through the midfield.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on their senior players, though, Al. I mean, Davis, Scully, Ward, Giles, O'Help and Palmer. You know they've got some young players, so we know that young players' forms fluctuate. The senior players really have to stand up today and over the next sort of 7 or 8 weeks. There's no question about that.
Yeah, very talented young team, but this is the best team in the competition, certainly last year, and they're showing plenty of signs again this week. The change is the fact that Sam Reid goes out with the quad strain. Very disappointing news, but just the depth of talent.
Yeah.
But the flip side to GWS, they've been able to introduce just a handful of young players that have been complementing their experience list.
Yeah, a lot of injuries this year for the Swans. I think the main thing for the Swans, though, their midfield's been intact. I mean, they've got a terrific midfield. They've got a really deep midfield now. We saw the banner. Craig Bird plays his 100th game, and he's one of the ones that's really stepped up, particularly over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's been a fantastic player. John Longmire, the coach of the Sydney Swans, joins us now. John, you'd be really happy to see that Gary Rowan played his first game after the big injury.
Yeah, it was fantastic to see Lynchy, to see him running around for the first time in 18 months after that broken leg, and he kicked a couple of goals, looked super, only played probably about 40 minutes in the second half, but looked good. He's just got a long way to go still, but it's a good start.
I was just saying before, you've had a lot of injuries, but your midfield's been intact. I think that's been really important for you. Guy Craig Bird, probably the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's almost career best form at the moment.
Yeah, he's been probably playing a bit more midfield because we've needed him in that part of the ground. He's been pretty good for us. He's playing really consistent footy. We know he can play a disciplined player, play run with roles, but the last few weeks he's actually been getting his hands on the footy.
Any sort of change of focus this week? Probably disappointing last week towards the end of the game against Melbourne. What's the major focus today against the Giants?
Yeah, we just probably didn't finish off our work last week. We kicked a lot of points, which doesn't help. I think we kicked 4 goals, 10 the second quarter, and we let them kick 13 goals, so that's a bit too many, and we've got to make sure we play our structure for 4 quarters and don't have any let-ups.
I guess the other thing when you're playing the Giants, you've got to tell your team to be relentless because we know they can play. They did that well against you in the first round where they kept on coming back. So it's really about putting 4 good quarters together.
Oh, there's no doubt. We saw them play against Geelong and they were in front at quarter time. They're only 2 goals down at 3/4 time. We know how good a team Geelong is, and we saw them they're probably a bit unlucky last week. So their best is really good and we need to be at our best.
Thanks for joining us and all the best for today.
Debate, but here's McGlynn trying to spear the ball in. Hampton put the head down. Jack was careful not to give it away. Ward wandering through. Hugh Smith wasn't the best of handballs. Whitfield did what he could. They keep it in Giants' hands, though, which is a pretty fair achievement. And good to see Dom Tyson back in for the first time this year. And Cameron should take this, and he does.
It's a ripping kick.
Wasn't it a beauty?
Absolute beautiful kick coming through the middle of the ground.
He moves very well, Jeremy Cameron, doesn't he? Just whether it's up at the ball carrier or back, works hard laterally. But you're spot on, the kick was outstanding.
Yes, Dom Tyson is a welcome return. He's had extended injury problems, a big knee injury in the pre-season, and he was the one that delivered it. Cameron puts it through. Great start.
201 centimetre Kurt Tippett put his hands in the air and got probably one of the easiest goals of his career. Look, Hampton did an unbelievably good job. I tell you, just working the mark, though, even a little thing like that, standing up, putting your hands up, and Hampton, he'd love to have that kick back again.
Oh.
So just top of the fingers.
That's a big reach.
Yep.
From a big forward. Nice way to get your first goal.
Mumford and Tippett want the ball slightly to their advantage so they can run and jump, not on top of their heads, though.
Kennedy, Jack and Palmer. And, Haynes had his wings clipped there, but kept it low.
Not sure that's correct disposal.
No, it's not.
Threw it up. But last week, especially in the first half against Melbourne, they were bombing into Kurt Tippett and giving the advantage to Frawley.
Well, there's another long one to Tippett. He's in the front spot. The ball out the back. Lamb was trying to get it off to McGlynn.
Oh,
he's got away with
maybe
that
a
one.
throw. No, he's not.
No,
I think the umpires had a peek and So you're not allowed to do that.
Just under siege though back there.
Yeah, they are. Look,
Plenty
they've held
of
up
ball going
okay. So, you know, you'd think he kicked 2-8 should be after this, but they've held up okay considering 16-5 now inside 50s.
So Kurt Tippett hasn't had a lot of clear space to run and jump at the footy. Here's Ben McGlynn. Had a shot for goal earlier which didn't make the distance. This shouldn't be a problem as far as that's concerned. Just a matter of accuracy. Ooh, there's a little bit of an ooh and an ah early, but it's through.
Yeah, they needed to get some reward. They've been in 16 times and it was 1 goal 8 prior to that. The delivery once again is sort of high, but yeah, a little bit. It's a bit of a volleyball spike, that one. But that's what the Swans do well. Even though they pump it in long, they will get their midfielders and half forwards to push in and tackle and put pressure on. So time in forward 50 would be enormously in the Swans' favour at the moment.
Benny McGuinn, unlucky to miss out last year with injury for the grand final. Just adds so much depth, does McGuinn, to this midfield. Can kick goals, works really hard.
6 disposals so far, one of 2 goal kickers. So the last minute 40, really important for the Giants. If they can get one back, they'd feel very good about their opening term. Whitfield, Cameron, always dangerous. Richards with a real handful today.
Talk about feeling good about your opening turn. Lockie Whitfield, 12 disposals.
A lazy dozen.
And Kevin Sheedy just coming down to the dugout to have a chat to probably his players just before he goes out for the quarter-time huddle.
Smith to Brandon Jack, who breaks. Well, he was going to break through the middle, but he's decided to be a bit more conservative. Mumford calls for it on the 50. Just engages Giles. He had that under control the whole time, Shane Mumford.
And that was much better from Brandon Jack then. Just the first couple of times he's got his I mean, he's got good speed, and that's his natural game, but just the ability to hold that up, and then a nice kick to the forwards advantage in Mumford.
And you would think in the reserves competition you'd be able to get away with running all the time.
And that's about adjusting your game as well. Often you'll turn around as that high half forward and there's no one in behind you, so you've got to have an awareness. But I like that much better. Just slow it down and kick it to the forwards advantage.
Quite a sight. Shane Mumford with the helmet. Comes in. Let's watch his kick. And he's found some range and slotted it through. So a couple of late ones. Very handy for the Swans. Rampy had Mitchell in mind. Finds him in the middle. He goes along to Tippett. He realised it wasn't going to go exactly where he wanted. Brave stuff from Whitfield and had good effect too. Was able to bring it to ground. Darley with the clearance, but it's only a matter of time. It's coming back again. Richards worked in well with Brandon Jack. Fairly bold kick, central kick, lovely. Mark Hanbury floated with it and doesn't wind up, goes for the pass instead. And Big Mike's taken the mark.
Well, that's the weighted kick that we didn't see in the first quarter. The one where you pull the kicks just 20 metres, gets you to a dangerous position 35 metres out and generate a shot at goal. In the first term, we saw most of those going to the top of the goal square where there was about 8 or 10 people. What's the go here? What's the stance here, Ruzi? Interesting setup.
Yeah, he's actually normally not a bad kick. I don't want to put the moz on him.
Oh, it's ugly but beautiful all at the same time.
Absolute ripper.
And kick tails off.
Good chase by McGlynn too.
A handball from McVeigh to Tippett. Had to bundle it with Hanbury. Back to McVeigh. And the Swans are lining up across half forward. Luke Parker took that extra yard just to balance himself. Banged it up to the square and Pike again.
Now again, to reinforce probably Barry Hall's point, was that was short, that was to the top of the goal square, but it was to Mike Pike's favoured side and gave him 4 or 5 metres to run into and jump, and it's going to be really hard to defend against that.
And through it goes for another. Well, the ball's going into the 50 with such regularity. Bird. Heavily populated goal square. Anyone stand and drag one down. It fell for Mumford and Mitchell, and they work well, and it's Mitchell that slams it home. Plenty of metres. And therefore time on his side. Probably, fair to say, didn't make the most of that. No. Out wide to Lamb. Jack was the short lead. He went longer, a little bit to nowhere. Gillan was able to get the intercept.
Just reinforce what you were saying, Ruzi, about how the Giants used the ball pretty well short in the first quarter. They've only had the 5 uncontested marks to the Sydney Swans 15 in this second term.
Yeah, it was a bit heartbreaking for Whitfield. He worked into the space, and Hanbury came straight off the bench and took the mark.
Yeah, you can see that passage of play there, Al's different. The first quarter, the Swans were just going long at every opportunity. I think John Longmolder spoke to him at quarter time and said, guys, we've got to start to hit some targets. And that passage of play there, just hitting Dan Hanbury, hitting Benny McGlynn on the lead.
So it's over to McGlynn now. Give one late in the first, and that'll just about do. Yep, it's through for another.
Yeah, that was just nice play, just spotting the ball around there and hitting targets, just not going long and deep as they were in the first quarter. As we can see here, Jude Bolton first led to Brandon Jack, handball, and then a nice hit-up lead there from Dan Hanbury to Ben McGlynn, and a good finish.
They're just starting to drop off a little bit as well, the Giants, and we saw Brandon Jack continued on from that play, and he was standing 30 metres out from goal all by himself for a number of seconds. Ben McGlynn didn't see him or elect to see him.
Two goals for Ben McGlynn, and the Swans have 7 now.
Yeah, just got to be really careful now. Love to see the Giants get hold of the ball and then just sort of slot some targets, slow it down and try and work their way into scoring position. Just control it for a minute or 2 minutes and get back in this game.
Yeah, get those uncontested marks up.
That is it's a tough call, but
tough call, yeah.
Good tackle from a Giants point of view.
Awesome tackle.
He's a complete player. I mean, he's only a kid, but he does everything. Defensively, he works really well. If the ball comes in long, he's outnumbered. He'll spoil to get the ball to the ground. And as we saw there, tackles very well.
Great Dermot Brereton's been doing some work with him during the last couple of years. You'd be happy to claim him, I reckon. He's an absolute ripper, as we said, and that's a good kick from Cameron. He kicks his second, and the Giants...
Some kids aren't going to develop in this environment.
Yep.
They're going to probably develop better in a stronger, more experienced environment.
Yeah, Tippett, bit of a standoff. Almost threw it, flung it back nicely. Lamb. And there's McGlynn just sliding in, marking just at the right time. Tippett's was from one angle and Kennedy from the other.
A clear difference in play in the second quarter by the Swans. There's no question. Their ability to lower their eyes, and as you mentioned, that the Giants players are just naturally dropping off in that fitness point of view at the end of these quarters, but they're finding targets at will now, the Swans.
So the siren sounds. It'll be up to Josh Kennedy to determine the margin that the Swans are in front by at the half. Plenty of Swans fans out today at the SCG to watch this premiership team in action, led by many, but one of them, a real leader, is Josh Kennedy. They wind their way through. Teeing it up, Richards. Jesse White. Kennedy. And it's out the... They're going to have a tall off the ground the whole time, aren't they, probably in this second half, Ruzi?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. We talked about it, but as I said, the Swans have got a lot of injuries at the moment. So, the White being the sub, it just means they're going to play tall in the forward half and give the mids a bit of rotation off the bench. You're going to see the two ruckmen probably playing most of the second half, either forward or in the ruck.
Richards feeding it back. Rampy again. Gets himself aligned with a hard leading Mike Pike, who normally pretty good at gobbling them up, but can't quite. Again to the square. Mumford in the hustle and bustle, and Jesse White. No one doubts his capabilities when he's on.
Powerful grab, big pack, and Jesse White, and he's just working really hard to give himself a chance to cement a spot in this team. Everyone expects it's going to be difficult, but the reality is that injuries pop up, and the Swans have got injuries at the moment, so there's a spot there for him.
And he's been pretty good when he's been playing in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Here he comes, Jesse White. Wasn't perfect, but it'll get the full result. Another to the Swans.
Certainly talked to his players about not taking the foot off the pedal and playing 120 minutes of football.
And certainly after last week's game, with only the 5 or 6 goal win over Melbourne, that was a factor that came out of it. They didn't get the percentage bonus that they really should have got last week.
Again, the joint ruckman. Tippett trying to get boot to ball.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, he was able to watch Mitchell do it.
That's not a bad goal.
You're rolling the dice and you can't win.
Giles the tap, but Mumford the handball to Hanbury. McVeigh, and the setup's complete. Tippett got it. And he got a little bit of interference along the way, but he kept on going and made sure he took the mark and gets a little high five on the way through.
It's been a good contest between Davis and Tippett. The two ex-Adelaide Crows players would have played on each other at training a fair bit, I would have thought, over the years.
Wouldn't make great viewing for Brenton Sanderson, would it really, to see here and watch some of the talent that's got out of the club one way or another.
Gunston at Hawthorn.
Tippett comes through. That'll do. That's another. That's his third. He's going off.
Going off the ground.
Take the mark from Core and then take it to the wing. This is Edwards. They start to advance into a more dangerous position.
Oh, gee.
Tyson play on. He was kept it moving anyway with Whitfield. Slides inside Everett. Angled past top of the square. O'Helpin didn't take it in the air. Knocked it back to Smith round the corner. That'll do. Nice goal from Devon Smith.
Run now, can they?
Nah. I mean, they can't wait for another pre-season.
Yeah,
get that under the belt. Get some experienced players around them.
Grundy goes for the pass. Jesse White was in motion.
And he's been handy as a sub coming on. We sort of thought maybe that was a tough one to have a big fella, big key position player, ruckman, as a sub, but he's had 7 disposals. This was 8, kicked 2 goals, so he's certainly done the job for John Longmire.
Well, Roosie, consistency's been a real issue for him in recent years, but this year he seems to be a lot more consistent in his effort, and he doesn't fade in and out of games. He's certainly a lot more switched on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Hawley. He's kicked his 3rd goal. It's a beautiful kick for goal, as we can see there.
All the same age, if they are.
Yep.
It's hard for you to say. I mean, it's like splitting Black and Voss, I would imagine, but who's the number one you take off the wall?
Oh, I think, look, Kennedy's become a really, really elite player. You know, there's some talk about, you know, I saw in the paper that, you know, the Giants have got the number 1 draft pick, as we see the goal square. It's a kick off the deck. Not sure who that was. Jude Bolton talking about elite midfielders with his knee as well. You know, clearly they're in their best 22, and it's just about getting them enough game time as we see the Swans go coast to coast again. And there's Joey Kennedy taking another mark inside the forward 50. And the umpire's called play on.
Has a think about it and decides.
Straight to the goal square.
And White's marked there. He's paid himself anyway.
He's trying to claim that one, Jesse White.
Pike.
He's taken the mark in the goal square.
And he's had another really good game as he's 9 disposals. This will be 3 goals he's kicked. Yeah, look, the best 22 is interesting. I think from the point of view, Hutto, they really haven't had a full list to pick from as Pikey kicks his 3rd goal. So I would suspect that even John Longmire and the match committee probably not sure who their best 22 is, to be perfectly frank, in some capacity.
Yeah, it's a good question.
With the Giants. Obviously, Steve Silvani's, I think, their list manager. Leon Cameron's going to be their coach next year. So it's going to be a really, really important off-season for them to become competitive next year.
Mitchell runs into a roadblock. Hanbury, deep kick, under some pressure, but not a problem for Ryan O'Keefe, who takes the mark. Hawley, Kurt Tippett spent quite a lot of time on the bench in this last quarter. He's sitting in the back row, has been there for 10 minutes. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with him. You didn't see there's any issue with him, though, at all?
Yeah, no, there doesn't seem to be any issues with him at all. He's just sitting there with his own little time. But look, I reckon they're probably just managing him. He might be a little bit sore, a little bit proper in a few areas, and they're just managing his game time. Okay,
there he is, watching on with Ben McGlynn, who does have an injury issue. And 129 points is now the margin. O'Keefe puts it through. And Tom Mitchell's had an amazing last quarter, Roosie. 16 disposals in this last
There it is.
turn.
He's involved in that. Look at that handball. He's had 16 disposals in this
8
last
score
quarter.
involvements in the last quarter.
So it's been a super last quarter. He can find the football, and the ability to just... Dan Hanbury's had 13, Craig Bird's had 10, McVeigh's had another 9, Kennedy. So they do have a great group of midfielders. McGlynn and Tippett telling jokes down there on the bench. I think,
it's been a belting, that's for sure, in the end for the Giants. We're down to the last 20 seconds. Can they add another one, the Swans? be harder now with a secondary ball up required. 13 seconds. Quick release. Mitchell's going to get another tap. No. Lays a good tackle. The ball.
But even again, you can see the professionalism of the Swans here. Just their ability to play right out the game. There's 4 seconds to go, and you've had 3 tackles in that last passage of play.
And the siren sounds, rings out around the SCG on a beautiful winter's day. And a massive percentage booster for the Sydney Swans. 24 goals, 27, 171 have defeated the hapless Giants of Greater Western Sydney. 5-12-42. And Kevin Sheedy ponders the afternoon and what's ahead for him in the last month or so of coach.
Straight. Shake down the thunder from the sky. Whether the odds be great or be small, Swans will go